Good morning and welcome to First Alarm Family First. I'm Carolyn Acosta.
And I'm Jen Herrera. Once again, we are so glad that you guys are joining us. It is episode 2 of our podcast. We want to take a moment to thank every single one of you who may have watched episode 1 and also who responded to it. It was kind of overwhelming, the response that we received, whether it was from social media, whether it was from emails. I received several text messages from first responders. So thank you for that. And it really did validate what we're doing and why.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we got back a lot of messages from the first responders and their families. And today we have a firefighter joining us who is going to share his challenges with mental health and PTSD. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, that explains why there's an empty chair here and an empty microphone. It won't be empty the entire show, just for right now. We can't wait to have him. And he's going to share a whole lot. So hopefully it will. We know it's going to make an impact.
Yes.
Before we do bring him in, we want to talk about 2 events that have occurred since the last time we were here. Less than 2 weeks ago, sadly, we did learn that a city of Miami firefighter did take his own life. He was a retired firefighter, and it made us think, we want to bring guests on who are affected in this profession, who can help guide every single one of us. Mm-hmm. And the retired firefighter community, unfortunately, has proven to be very affected when it comes to suicide. So if you or a loved one is a retired firefighter and you feel strongly about this subject and would like to share about this subject, we encourage you to reach out to us. Again, whether it's through social media, email, or text message. We're in the firefighter world, so I know a lot of you can reach out to us directly, because it's a big deal when it comes to somebody spending 20 plus years in a profession at this caliber, and then all of a sudden it's gone.
Yes, no, it's definitely a topic to highlight. What happens then when you're done your uniform? You no longer are part of the service anymore. Where do you go from here? So definitely we'll highlight that topic soon.
Yeah, being a first responder, being a firefighter, police officer, military, it's a huge part of someone's identity. It's very ego-driven, right? You wear that uniform with pride. You iron that uniform. You drive around in the big old fire trucks. The community reacts to you a certain way. And then when it's gone, and for no other reason than you've done a heck of a job for several decades, it does have an impact. My dad, actually, he watched episode 1. And I was like, okay, so, Dad, what did you think? And he's like, you got my rank wrong. And if you know my dad, he talks like that. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, you said my dad's a firefighter. I was a captain.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
This man's been retired for almost 20 years, maybe 20 years. Right. And so there's an importance with that. And we get that coming from firefighter families. And we understand that. And we want to talk about that. And we want to prevent anything like this from happening again to another firefighter family or a retiree. Mm-hmm. Another subject, maybe you saw it, was Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. They are getting a new contract. Mm-hmm. And there's some interesting things we found interesting in that contract, including going from 24 hours on to 48 off to now going from 24 hours on to 72 hours off, meaning on shift for 24 hours for a full day. Mm-hmm. And then they'll have 3 days at home instead of 2 days at home. There are other departments that do this. I know Seminole Tribe, for instance, is one department that does this already. I believe Boca Raton is another department that does this already. You're seeing this catch on. Mm-hmm. It's 3 days of recovery at home.
That's excellent. I think that, they need that time to rest and recuperate. After some of the things that they've seen, they're not sleeping. They're working 24 hours. They need 72 hours to just go home, decompress, connect with their family again, because you're gone, and it does make a difference. It does put a toll on the family.
Yeah, I was thinking about it when I saw it, the news about the new contract. So say you work a heck of a 24-hour shift, right? You have little sleep. You get home that first day, you're just trying to keep your eyes open, right? The next day, okay, you're starting to acclimate again. But then, like you said, it's that third day to hopefully, spend time with your family or spend time doing something that you enjoy doing to distract you from something that may have transpired in that 24-hour shift.
Yeah, take care of your own health, wellness, go to the gym, work out, go see a therapist. Mm-hmm. So many things you can do with that extra day. Yeah.
So Palm Beach County, it looks like 24 hours on, 72 hours off. I will say it's supposed to take place in 2026. So a little bit of time, but still definitely on the right track. Another thing that I found interesting that I saw was included in that contract is a annual mental health check. Yes. So there's annual appointments, right? Like your physical is annual, but to have an annual mental health check. Wow.
It's definitely needed. Yeah. You know, one thing that we need to work on is having that more frequently. You know, we all need that.
We speak a lot about South Florida fire departments, but what we discuss is something that happens all across the country. I want to go ahead and share some information with you. Let's take a look at the numbers when it comes to firefighters and how they are truly being affected. This is from Firefighter Behavioral Alliance. 57.6% of firefighters report having experienced a major morally damaging event. So think about a call involving children, perhaps, or having to pick saving one person or another. 49.8% admitted to feeling emotionally detached and isolated, long recognized as a mental health stressor. From 2014 to 2020, this is really one that got my attention. More firefighters died by suicide than they did in the line of duty. And we've touched on this. We understand that there is a risk when our loved ones go to work in the fire department every single day. We know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mental health is not something I ever thought about until now as far as a risk. It's getting hurt on the job. It's getting hurt in a fire. It's having a altercation, on a call. It's that fire truck driving, not speeding, but driving at a faster rate to a call. What could happen? But that to me is huge. More firefighters dying by suicide than in the line of duty. I am incredibly happy to share with you that the firefighter who is joining us now did not become part of the statistics that you're looking on the screen at right now.
Thank you, John, for joining us today and sharing your story. It truly means a lot to me.
Thank you,
When you reached out a couple weeks ago, it truly filled my heart because I know that, you're going to help somebody else. And if Alex was here, I'm sure he would do the same. And I know he's looking down and smiling because he knows that you're doing the right thing, and this is what we need more of, you guys coming out and talking about it.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're very happy. To get started, do you want to just tell us a little bit about your story, your journey, how you got here?
I've been a fireman for 20 years, and I, always thought being a fireman was the best job in the world. And, you get to save lives, make differences, impact everybody, even if it's in a minuscule way. But I never really prepared myself for the after effects.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen when I go home? How are people going to perceive me? And it took a while for me to, I want to say, I guess, hit a breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
You go on numerous calls, you see things. You go home, and being a firefighter, you are under the perception that you just suppress your feelings. You don't talk about them. They'll go away. Or if you're lucky enough, somebody will catch you and say, hey, something's off. Mm-hmm. And then you sit down and talk, but you really never open up. And I got to the point one day I ran a call and started having, it was 2 young kids that passed away in a car crash. And I started having nightmares. And I had in my nightmares, my kids were the ones dying in the car crash. And I had them every day. And I could not sleep. People saw that I was off, but nobody really asked questions. We'd go home, and my wife at the time would be there, and she's a fireman as well. And I just really never felt comfortable talking because it wasn't expected of us.
Of course.
Suppress your emotions.
You've said that twice, that it wasn't expected of us, or that firefighters aren't supposed to talk about it. When was that developed, John? I'm genuinely curious. You know what I mean? Like, when do we decide? Is it in the academy, right? When that's decided, okay, we're not going to talk about this. Is it a personality thing that most firefighters have, or is there an expectation?
I think growing up, you see police, fire, military as somebody up here. Mm-hmm. So you don't expect them to hurt. You don't expect them to cry.
Right.
And I think that's what I meant by that comment.
Yeah.
And we do.
Yeah.
When did you realize, you're a recruit, right? It's exciting. You're straight out of the academy. You're going to get to run these calls. You're going to get to live out your dream, back to the whole identity and ego thing. Do you remember a specific shift where it was like, oof, this comes with a lot. This is more than just putting on my uniform every day?
I did have a call before I had children that didn't affect me at the time, but it affected everybody else who did. Mm-hmm. It was a young girl that was left in her car, and she overheated and passed away. I was affected because it's a death, but watching all the other parents, you know, they were shit, you know, this is real.
Yeah.
And then when I became a parent, you know, I started to see things go on, and that call just put me into a dark spot, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I didn't know how to talk. You know, started drinking. And it wasn't, you know, a need, but it was a way to not talk. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Coping
Of course,
mechanism.
yeah.
Yeah, it allowed me to deal with my emotions without reaching out for help. And there were a couple people at my station that did see me. I would stay up till 3, 4 in the morning. And one officer did see me, and he would stay up with me. He knew something was wrong, but he never asked. And then I think it's the stigma that if somebody doesn't ask or doesn't say anything about it, we'll just push it off to the side.
Yeah, just keep it moving. Nobody brings it up, we'll just ignore it.
Yeah.
It's definitely.
What would you say was your lowest point? I know that you shared it very openly, but this is going to be hard.
Yeah.
But can you give us the details of that day? And I'm only pushing you on this, John.
That's fine.
Because I think that there are signs sometimes that are there that we miss because no one's expecting this.
Right.
So if you could take us through that day.
There was a night I was at home with my family, my 2 young kids and my ex-wife at the time, or my wife at the time, and I just hit a point and, you know, started drinking. More of a binge drinking, I guess that's what I would say I was doing. And I was sitting on the couch watching TV. She was upstairs with the kids, and I just said, man, I'm a burden. I don't deserve what I had. Walked upstairs, I grabbed my gun, I came down and I sat on my couch downstairs, and I put it on my lap, and I pulled the clip out, and I just started playing with it. And she saw me on the camera and came downstairs and grabbed it, went upstairs with the kids, and contacted other family and stuff, and they came over to help me, but I took off. Got in my car and left. Came back eventually, and that was the first time that you know, the thoughts have gone through your head, you know, am I better off here? But that was the first time that I actually sat down and probably would have went through it.
Yeah. I imagine, Carolyn, that's really hard to hear.
Well, you know, because I put myself back in that day, even a couple of days before Alex, you know, passed. And I think to myself, what was he thinking? You know, where was he at that he didn't think of me and my son, you know? But I know that he didn't not love us. I know that we meant everything to him. I just feel like he was in such a dark place, and he truly felt like, I don't deserve any of this. And it's sad because you guys deserve all of it. You know, you guys deserve to be happy and deserve to have all the great things because you do so much for us. Like, think of all the people you've helped and saved and just were there as a person, you know, what you're doing now. So it just, I wish I could go back and I wish I could do more. You know, obviously that's not going to happen. I feel like I could do things now. But I'm glad that you're opening up because I kind of put myself back at that moment when he was sitting there and, you know, he did what he did. And shit, you know, it sucks. It sucks because he was such a great person. And to feel so alone really sucks.
Yeah. It's the darkest place. And it sucks. It drives you nuts.
Yeah.
You know, your mind constantly tells you that you're better off not being here. And that's the hardest part because you mean something to people.
Yeah.
You know, if not anybody in this world, your family,
Mm-hmm.
kids, wives, cousins, uncles, and you lose that train of thought is gone. You really genuinely think you're better off not being here. And it sucks.
you had somebody who kind of called you out and first in a positive way, and then said, let's get you some help. Do you mind sharing that story?
I don't. My few people, had pointed me in the right direction, and said I need help. But after a couple episodes I had where I totally flipped out and lost my calm and my cool, I reached out to my regular group of friends, and then my ex-wife's father, who I looked up to as a retired chief, he basically said, "Look, you're important." And this is a non-emotional man, and he broke down with me, and that was the point where I said, shit.
Yeah.
This is a guy who really doesn't owe me anything. And he's reaching out of his comfort zone and saying, you need help.
And I don't want to get into the specifics because they do vary from department to department. We do know that where you work, yes, resources are available through different avenues, through the department, whether it's through the union, there are resources available. You actually went away to get help. Can you kind of take us through that process in case someone is watching right now and they have a family member or themselves, the story between Alex's story and your story, sadly, it sounds very familiar, and they want to do something. How did you get to be sitting here today with us?
Through a personal friend, Michelle Steele, captain of our department. She's a close friend. She was one of the people that reached out and said, you need to get help. She had told me about a facility in Maryland. It's IFF, Center of Excellence. You need to go there. She explained to me what it was, and it's basically an inpatient facility that treats PTSD, addiction, any problems you really have. And she said, you need to go. First time I didn't go. Second time was the story I had explained.
Why didn't you go the first time?
I wasn't ready. Wasn't ready for help.
So there's a point where you have to be ready to accept that help, or to admit maybe that it's...
Every person I've talked to that I've helped out, first thing I tell them, you have to be the one to want help. I could point you in the right direction, but if you aren't willing to tell yourself that I need help, doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah. I think that has to be, I don't know if relief's the right word, Carolyn, but like for loved ones and for you, for what you've experienced, to know that you did what you could.
Right.
It's up to that person,
It's up
and
to
that frame of mind and what's happening.
Yeah, I guess they have to hit rock bottom to realize that, it's time. Yeah. And that comes with anything. I feel like, in life, you have to save yourself. You have to be willing to make that choice and say, I need the help, or else it doesn't work, But it's great to hear that there's a facility there. And I think you had mentioned that it's kind of like a fire station.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No.
It's basically it's a facility that is meant, it's all firefighters, and it is intended to keep the firehouse setting as accurate as can be. So I had the misfortune of going there in COVID, so it was a little different. But you start off, you get an evaluation, then they place you into a house, and the house is set up like a bunk room with a kitty, like a regular fire station.
That's cool.
You go, and then you progress as you go through the program. And I was there for 30 days. The average, I think, is 30, but 21 to 40 is like the norm. And you go through trauma classes where you write down events in your life, and they basically draw it out of you. They're magicians. They find emotions that are in your head that you never knew were there. I had issues growing up with my father and abuse. That came out. It's tremendous. I mean, I can tell you 1,000 things about it, but we don't have 10 hours.
We have 10 minutes left, so we're going to get a lot in the 10 minutes. You talked about the kitty, you talked about the bunks. Sounds like a real fire station. How important was that, John, in the whole recovery process to be in a place that was so familiar to you?
I say the fire pit chats was the ultimate savior. You could talk to people, you could talk to doctors, and they're doing their job. So yeah, you might get the connection with one of them, which I did, but sitting around and talking with people that don't judge you, that are going through their own problems, whether it's worse or, the same or less. And they don't judge you because they're going through something as well. And I think hearing people be open and not being judged just allows your emotions to let go. And it's that whoosah. It's like all the weight is off of you. And just, it's amazing. The fire life we live here can be such a cure, and not a cure, a tool to help with this if we knew what we were doing. And that comes back to being able to talk about it and not suppress your feelings. Yeah. And it was key.
And you're still talking about, you're taking the tools that you learned there.
Absolutely.
And continuing. How do you're a dad. You have 2 young boys.
Yes.
7 and 8, I believe.
Yeah.
8, 9. Okay, 7 and 8. How do you have these conversations? I mean, we have to keep their age in mind,
Right.
no oversharing, yet not hiding either. How do you teach 2 young boys specifically the importance of sharing feelings, the importance of not bottling things inside, the importance of when you're hurting, when you're struggling, to vocalize it?
Like I said, I didn't grow up with a dad. So I had a few father figures in my life and I loved them to death. But I teach them that it's okay to talk, like after baseball games. Our ride home, you get to talk. How do you think your game went? No yelling, nothing. It's just talk. That's our time. And I do that with both my kids. Letting them know it's okay to talk about anything. Thank God they don't talk about girls and stuff like that.
Not yet. Not
Brace
yet.
yourself, my friend.
But I want them to know that they can come up and talk about anything. And I think starting that at an early age, is a good idea for me and them, because they won't have that fear of being able to talk to me. If there's that one person you can always talk to, that could be the difference.
Yes.
Do they know what you went through, or how much of it do they know?
They were there, unfortunately, when I reached my bottom. They know a little bit, but I don't think in full detail and in depth. And I will talk to them about it as they get older. But right now, there's baseball. I got to worry about them eating and doing their laundry, their chores and stuff. So it will be discussed, but right now it's not the best time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that relationship about just talking about baseball, whatever it is, I mean, once you open up those lines of communication, it'll continue. You just have to continue to just feed it.
I don't want to dwell on this because this is actually a subject that we're going to talk about in a later episode. You mentioned the binge drinking and the alcohol. It's kind of been a show of statistics. We've shared quite a few. It's high, the drinking and the substance abuse with first responders.
Absolutely. This is big for me because I don't think it's a problem to sit down and have drinks. You need to know when you've reached a point and when you've gone past the drinking for fun or drinking to hide your feelings and suppress ideas and thoughts. Because that's when we tend to make the mistakes, i.e. pulling a gun out, doing stupid things when we have been on drugs, drank, whether it's prescription or non-prescription. We make decisions.
Well, and then you add PTSD to that.
Yes.
It's a deadly dosage.
It really is. It really is. And it's something that we don't talk about. And I continue to say we don't talk about because who do you talk about it with? And then B, what do you tell them? This is a guy who you run into a fire with, and this guy, you want him to have your back all day, but now he might be going through an emotional state and he might not be ready to be there. So it's hard.
Yeah. I imagine it's a daily practice.
For me, it is.
Yeah. So what do you do, if you don't mind me asking, on a daily basis to kind of keep you in the right headspace?
When I was in Maryland, I learned that music therapy helps me. I listen to country music. I'm guilty. But my boys and me, we listen to Lee Bryce is one of my guys, and he has a song called Boy. And we listen to that song all the time. And that's my way of kind of bonding just by listening to music, but music helps me.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
What would you say, John, for someone who is watching right now and is not feeling their best and is feeling some lows, or a spouse, a loved one knows that something is wrong? What would be your first piece of advice as far as what to do right now?
Slow down, take a deep breath. it's okay to have thoughts in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Find somebody you can trust, whether it's a best friend, hell, an enemy, somebody who will listen, and make them listen. You know, you can sit down and talk all day, and just somebody listening, even if they're faking the funk, you getting it off your chest will help you 1,000%.
Yeah. Does it surprise you that so few people talk to their spouses about this kind of stuff?
It was different for me.
Yeah, it was a different.
But I do, because you don't want to bring the burden home. You know,
Yeah.
Am I going to come home and tell, you know, my wife or whoever, say she's a banker, you know, hey, I watched a 7-month-old die today? No, because then she's going to have an emotional response. It might ruin her day. She might take it out on the kids, and it might trigger down.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
We've talked about that, Carolyn. They want to protect us because they're protectors by nature.
Right. They want to be, they don't want to tell us all the bad stuff. And, and I used to question Alex too, like, what is it that you saw? I know you had a rough, he would never tell me. He would just keep it very, very, clean, like, oh, it was a bad call. I just need to, decompress a little, but it wasn't anything that he would go into specifics or anything like that. He was very, I don't want to say good about it, because look what happened, but he just wouldn't talk about it.
But it's so honest. Like, it's kind of like it's hiding it from everybody to keep the facade, because he was protecting you.
He was protecting, yeah. But I think to myself too, maybe he was like, by not talking about it, he wouldn't have to feel those emotions again too. Maybe he was just not wanting to bring that up for himself too, like relive it. Because I think when you do talk about it, you kind of do relive it a little. But if there's that camaraderie with the guys or the girls or whatever, talking, because you're all experiencing that, everybody kind of does show their feelings then, and it's okay. Yeah. It's okay to express it and say, hey, it did affect me. That was pretty harsh what you saw.
It's a generational thing too, isn't it? We're running out of time. I feel like we could talk forever. The old school guys, no way. I'm sorry. Like, you're an anomaly, my friend, No, but no, it's a good thing that because even before your time, like my dad's time, your father-in-law's time, like no way in heck would they be sitting in that chair right now. And it's not their fault. It was the time. I
want to see my kids grow up. And that's, at the end of the day, the world could be going nuts, but I need to be there for them.
Yeah.
John, thank you
No problem.
so much for joining us today. Yeah, there's no doubt that somebody was impacted by this. We want to remind all of you that this is what we are here for, to have these conversations at First Alarm Family First. A reminder, we are hoping to reach out to retirees or the spouses of retirees to join us for our next episode. So if you are interested, please reach out to us. My Instagram's Mrs. Jen Herrera TV, and then Carolyn.
Yes, at First Alarm Foundation, you can reach out, or through our website, firstalarmfoundation.com. Please visit, join, follow us. We'll have more episodes right in, so we can find more topics to talk about that you guys would like to hear about.
And there's a big walk that's taking place this weekend. You want to give the details?
Yes, October 27th, we'll do the suicide prevention walk. It's going to be at Nova Southeastern. I have a link on the First Alarm bio if you want to sign up. We're going to be walking under Alex Acosta, Sound the Alarm. And please join us if you can.
Yeah,
we'd love to have you.
We want to remind all of you to please reach out if you need help. You'll see some information scrolling right there on the bottom of your screen. Big thank you, as always, to everybody here at Community Newspaper for having us. Grant and Michael, we appreciate the time. To everybody with the local fire departments who have helped with information, we appreciate that too. And as always, a shout out to Rachel for being the best producer ever over there behind the scenes. And I love this slogan, and we're going to say it every single time at the end of our show because it matters and we want it to resonate with you.